you've ever contemplated getting on medication for any kind of mental struggle you might be on, I definitely think you need to stick around and listen to this next segment. So we call it Free Therapy Thursday. The Bert Show likes to get on and basically suggest everybody get therapy. And unfortunately, that's not always accessible to everyone, depending on different circumstances. So we have Miranda Campbell here, who is a licensed therapist from Port Counseling Group, who is kind enough to come on here and donate your services and try to help out some of our listeners and some of their therapy questions. So thank you once again for being here today.
Of course. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah. And so today we're specifically going to focus on medication. And you and I were just chatting during the commercial break that there is such a stigma around people taking medication when it comes to anxiety, depression, etc. And it's like, you wouldn't shame a diabetic for taking insulin. You wouldn't shame a cancer patient for taking chemo. So why in the world would you ever shame somebody for taking something for their anxiety or for their depression?
Yeah, I think people sometimes fear what they don't understand. Mm-hmm. And there's such a stigma about like, oh, that makes you weak, or maybe you just aren't praying hard enough, or your relationship with a higher power isn't strong enough. And that's BS.
Got it. Yes. All right. So we got a email specifically asking about getting on medication.
Hey, Bert Show. I've been listening to your show for a very long time, and I know y'all are huge advocates for good mental health, therapy, and even medication when needed. I recently had my first telehealth visit with a psychiatrist and was almost immediately prescribed Lexapro. I think that's what Kristen takes. I'm supposed to start it tomorrow, and I'm oddly terrified of taking medication. I've been battling with anxiety for a while, probably a lot longer than I realized, actually, and it's been exacerbated by kids and life in general, really. There's now a glimmer of hope that maybe this is what I need, and maybe there is a light at the end of this seemingly endless tunnel I've been traveling down, but I'm scared that it's somehow going to change me for the worst. Is that crazy? I feel like I know this is the right move, and I've known for a while, but now that the time has finally come, I am terrified. Please tell me this is somewhat normal, maybe, hopefully, and I'm not alone. I've never been on any type of medication ever, but I need a way to pull myself out of this. Thanks for your advice and the laughs you guys provide on the regular. Love y'all.
So to confirm, I am on Lexapro. I have been on Lexapro for 6 years for anxiety. And I actually increased my dose at year 5 because I started feeling those similar like pulls of anxiety. And so we upped it. I was at 10 milligrams and now I'm at 15 milligrams. So it's a fairly small dose, or not 0.5 and then 0.10 or 0.10 then 0.15. Lord have mercy. I probably should have taken it today. So for me, it was a game changer. And I honestly didn't know life could be like this had I not taken it. And I did therapy for years. I was doing yoga. I started watching my diet, trying to alleviate the anxiety, and nothing was working. So for me, it was like, all right, I felt like I've done the work. Now I'm going to take the medication and see what happens. And it was a blessing. It worked for me. I know for some people it didn't work. You got to find the right medicine and also the right dosage for you. But it honestly can change your life for the better.
For sure. And for those that are feeling kind of nervous or hesitant about taking medications, I would suggest doing what you did and exhausting other options just to see what impact it makes. If those symptoms are still persistent, then why not consider it? Another sign that you may benefit from having medication prescribed is if your symptoms serve as a barrier to you actually using effective coping skills. So if you're too depressed or too anxious to actually follow through with like, I can't get out of bed for my therapy appointment, or I can't, find the motivation to go to yoga, then that would be a definite sign.
And I think she should take normal out of your vocabulary as far as like you feeling terrified. I had gotten to the point that when I was prescribed it, I wasn't terrified. I was relieved.
Okay.
Like, okay, we're going to try this. Hopefully, I was relieved and I was hopeful. And for 2 weeks, I was in this fog. You know what? I'm going to check myself. There was a bit of terrifying as far as like, I thought it was going to change me and I wouldn't be the same Kristen and I wouldn't be as good on the radio because it would take away from my creativity. But what ended up happening after I got through that 2-week fog, I had even more clarity and more creativity, and it actually brought out the aspects I like about myself more.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And so if you're not sure, you just have to trust yourself to know that you can respond to whatever comes up as it does come up. So if you're experiencing things are getting worse, or, there are some possibilities that you may have negative symptoms as a result of the medication. And that's not to scare you. It's just, if you know, then you can kind of be on the lookout for it and respond accordingly. I think as a mom, it definitely makes sense for you to consider that as an option. Like, I recently just stopped taking medication that I was prescribed for postpartum. And it was a huge ordeal for me mentally, like, to see a provider for it. As a therapist, there was a lot of shame, and I had to even combat my inner oh, I should be able to do this. What are people going to think about me? But at the end of the day, I knew that it was important for me to be able to show up as the mom I wanted to. And so, think about your why as you're confronting the anxieties.
I think there's a lot of doubt, because you just mentioned postpartum, and I had severe postpartum depression. And I started seeing a therapist, but I didn't really pursue medication in the way that I wished I had. Now, in retrospect, I feel like I'm out of that postpartum depression period, and I still have anxiety and OCD, which is being managed a lot better through things that like coping techniques. But looking back, when I was in it, I was like, I don't need meds. Like, this is going to go, I can fix this. I don't need this. Or not even realizing there was a problem, just being like, this is how life is. And now in retrospect, I'm like, no, it didn't need to be that hard. It didn't have to be that kind of a fight every single day. I could have made life so much easier for myself if I had just used this tool that was accessible to me. But for whatever reason, I don't know if it was the stigma. I don't know if it's like I can do it myself, or also not even realizing I was in that place. So I think being able to stop and, for our listener, and be like, yes, I'm in that place where this could help me. And I just want to offer, not that I've ever done meds, but in retrospect, as someone who has gone through a period like that, looking back, it doesn't have to stay that way.
Yeah. It'd be like Mo trying to swim without a floaty. I'm sure.
I'm gonna need therapy today now. You taking shots.
Totally. I like to bring levity to these deep topics, but
You have to in order to get through them.
Yeah, absolutely. But do it. Why not?
Yeah. And also, too, this doesn't have to be like a permanent solution. Some people get on it and then a year or two later are able to get off of it. Me personally, my doctor brought that up in our, because I get prescribed, I have a therapist, but she's not licensed to do prescriptions. So I get my medicine through my general practitioner. And she was like, well, you're doing, would you like to get off? And I was like, nope. No. We're good. We're going to stay. So, it's just whatever you feel you need. And just you were able to go ahead and get through postpartum, and you had the help of the medication. And now you feel strong enough that, okay, we can take this away and see how we do.
Yeah. Having a baby during the pandemic,
girl, yeah, that was something else.
What coping skills do you have access if you chose to be on the conservative side about the exposures?
Yes. And also, when's the last time we went through a pandemic? There's really nothing to reference or compare it to. So
everything I did to prepare was a moot point because of the pandemic. And so I'm sure everyone has little nuances in their life that they have to sort out. But I think you bring up an important point about including your therapist if you're seeing one in the conversation. They can help you identify, is this working? Is this not? Oh, I'm concerned about this, or this shouldn't be happening, and prompt you or coordinate services with your prescriber.
Awesome. All right. So thank you so much, Miranda Campbell from Port Counseling Group. If you want to reach out for any of their services, you can find them at portcg.com. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Bert Show.